Hi, I'm Melissa with Storyteller Stitchery, and welcome to back to our YouTube channel. Today's an exciting day. It's Saturday, September 14th, and we are launching our new collection today. So it's gone live into the shop today. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll have seen lots of photos and videos, and I've been sharing lots about the different colorways there. But I want to come on today and chat a little bit about the collection. We've got yarn, fibre, hand-dyed embroidery threads, as well as some notions like stitch markers and sewing needle minders. So I'll share all of that. Yeah, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of chat about the collection, the colorways, but also talk about the different bases that they're offered on. And so I'm going to talk about the bases that we carry at Storyteller Stitchery, but a lot of it is going to be relevant to, you know, any yarn. And so if you sometimes find it a bit of a challenge when you're looking at yarn online to really understand, like, what is it you're looking at, like to have a, you know, a clear vision of what the yarn base is actually going to be when it shows up. A lot of what we're going to talk about is going to kind of help decipher some of that information. So yeah, we'll look at the colors and the bases and have a chat about all of that. Before I jump into it, I did want to share a quick update just on behalf of Storyteller Stitchery. So there's a couple of events that we're supposed to be at in the next few weeks. So we're supposed to be at DFW Fiber Fest in Dallas, and then we're supposed to be at Mavwa, which is the Fiber Festival in Santa Fe in early October. So we are not going to be at either of those events. If you're on my newsletter, you know, if you receive our newsletters, or if you've been on Instagram, you might have seen that we've had some medical stuff going on in the family this summer. So my son has had a couple of surgeries, 2 different surgeries. We knew he was going to have one. The last one a few weeks ago was unexpected, but yeah, anyway, he's had a couple of surgeries. So we it's been a summer of kind of, you know, taking care of him. And when I signed up for the events, I fully thought we'd be able to go, but I just need to stay home with him for longer. I'm not ready to leave him just yet. So so I've let the event organizers know just very recently. It was a difficult decision to make. I know we cancelled another event. We were supposed to be at the Convergence event back in, is that June? No, it was July, I think, early July. Anyway, so there's been a few events this summer that we've had to cancel. So it's unfortunate that we also won't be at those two, and I apologize if you were expecting to see us there and hoping to come and shop our booth. But it's just one of those, you know, unplanned things, and obviously making sure that my son's doing well and kind of staying home and giving him the chance to rest without travel is what's needed right now. So I'm going to post that on Instagram as well and Facebook, and try and make sure everybody knows that we won't be there in person at those events. But we do have everything listed online, and so and if you are a newsletter subscriber, then you'll have seen the email that came out yesterday or today, because I sent it yesterday and today, so it was one or the other you should have received. But I did send a discount code for all of our new newsletter subscribers for the new collection, so the Cozy Hearthside collection. So hopefully that'll help, you know, offset any disappointment for not being able to shop in person. So anyway, let's move on to looking at the new collection and kind of chatting about the colorways. All right, so let's start with the sock sets. So we have, like I said earlier, 4 new variegated colorways. And so in the sock set, the main skein is the variegated colorway. So this one is inspired by Little House on the Prairie. And in the sock set, you get the coordinating tonal that goes with it. And then you also get, I did a 5th coordinating tonal, which is this one, Hearthside Glow is the name of the colorway. And for this one, I wanted to do another, like I wanted to do a tonal that just coordinated across the entire collection and kind of gave it a little bit of a, you know, a little pop of color, a little bit different. So in the sock set, you'll get the book that it was inspired by, you'll get the main variegated colorway, the coordinating tonal, and then every sock set has this tonal as well. So these are fingering weight, 80% merino, 20% nylon. So great for socks because they're, you know, with the merino, they're nice and soft, but you also have that nylon for a little bit of strength, so they're nice and hard wearing in socks. So yeah, this is the first colorway. And then inspired by Little Women, this colorway is called Winter in Concord. So the women, Little Women is set in Concord, Massachusetts. And so it's got some nice speckles and some different colors going on there. And so you get the coordinating tonal, which is Concord Frost, this lovely blue. And like I said, all of the socks get this. So this is the one inspired by Little Women. And inspired by Anne of Green Gables is this lovely little autumn one, which I've noticed the orders that have been coming in this morning so far. This is definitely the most popular colorway, and I've noticed like multiple sweater quantities of this in either our Fable or Saga, which is our worsted weight in either superwash or non-superwash. So this one seems to be a favorite and I can see why. It's like a great fall color. You've got some speckles in there. So Anne of Green, and then, you know, Green Gables, and obviously inspired by Anne. This one is Green Fields of Avonlea. So it's a nice vibrant contrasting color. So these two make up the variegated and the tonal for this book. And then again, the same tonal that's in the set. The last one is inspired by Heidi, and so I very much wanted it to feel like autumn in the Alps and kind of capture that autumn feel in the mountains. So this is the main, the variegated colorway is the main skein, and Alpine Gold is the tonal. And again, with the coordinating that goes across all of them. And this one's it's quite a variegated tonal. The way that I dye it, it has like undertones of brown to it. So it has like a lot of like depth and almost like texture to the color. So yeah, so those are the colors for the sock set. So, and then actually I can show you, I did knit up little swatches. I used my circular sock knitter and put together some swatches. So for this one, this is the swatch. So you can see it knitted up. And that is the Little House on the Prairie color. For Anne of Green Gables, that is this one, and this swatch is knitted in Storyteller sock base, which is exactly the same as the yarn, the main and the minis in the sock set. It's exactly the same yarn base. So you can see those green speckles. For the Heidi inspired colorway, that is this one. So I think that's a lovely, like, it's got some different, you know, oranges and golds and berries and plums, and it feels very autumn. And then, so Little Women, is this one. So in the fingering weight yarn, we have a couple of bases. And so fingering weight refers to, so actually let's just back up a little bit. So when we talk about the weight of yarn, if you're new to, new to yarn, new to knitting, crochet, whatever kind of fiber arts you're in, when you talk about the weight of yarn, it talks about the thickness. So if you look at a skein of yarn, whether it's like this or in a ball, the individual, like the yarn itself, how thick that is the weight. So a weight of yarn that is fingering weight is, pretty thin yarn. And you can have lace weight, which would be a little bit thinner. And then it goes sport weight, DK, worsted weight, and then you kind of get up into Aran, and then the chunky and bulky weights. So just in contrast, so ignore the colors, the color has nothing to do with this, but just I'm hoping we can zoom in and you can see that this yarn here is fingering weight, this one here is Aran weight. And so one, when you look at the yarn itself, it's just much thicker. So when we say weight of yarn, that's what we mean. It doesn't matter if it's, a 50-gram skein and a, 100-gram skein. Like, the weight of yarn is not the weight of yarn in a skein, if that makes sense. It's actually the thickness of the yarn itself. So looking at fingering weight yarn, we have Epic base, we have Storyteller sock base, and we have Adventure base. I do also have another one called Legend, but I don't list that one in the shop a lot, so I think I'm going to skip over that one. But for anybody who's interested, the Legend base is our Blue-Faced Leicester BFL sock yarn. But I don't have that listed most of the time. If you're interested and you want, I do have it in stock. So I can, do a custom order if you wanted that, I guess just so you know it's there. But we're going to skip it today because I don't carry it and list it in the shop very often. All right, so let's chat about what is the difference between all of these different fingering weight yarns. So if we start with Epic, and because they're both fingering weight, these are two different yarn bases, but they're going to look fairly similar. They're the same thickness because they're fingering weight. This one, Epic, is 100% Superwash merino, and it is, I believe it's 4-ply. I'm pretty sure it's 4-ply. The sock yarn, Storyteller sock, this one is 80% merino and 20% nylon and is 2-ply. So this Epic base, that's 100% merino, this is great for like sweaters, shawls, scarves. Both of them are very soft, but I would not use the 100% merino Epic base for socks, because for something that is going to be, you're going to be walking in it, there's like a lot of abrasion and, wear and tear on it. The 100% merino will go into holes much faster than the one that has some nylon in. So the nylon gives it a little bit of strength and helps it to kind of wear longer. So they both feel pretty soft. You could definitely use Storyteller sock for sweaters, shawls, and I have done that. Sweaters, shawls, all of those things. But anything that's hard wearing, go for the sock, Storyteller sock with a nylon in it. And then anything else, you kind of have the option between the two. This one with it, the Epic, with it being 4-ply, is a really nice one to use for, like, if you're doing a shawl or a scarf that has some lace work, because it has the 4-ply, it's like a very nice round yarn, and so it's going to give you really nice stitch definition. Let's talk about ply, actually, because I didn't mention that. So when I say the ply of it, that refers to how many singles are twisted together to make the yarn itself. So it doesn't matter if it's hand spun or if it's commercially spun yarn. The wool is initially spun into what's called singles. So a single, you know, a single yarn, and then you can knit with that. It tends to be less balanced, and so you can, having it plied gives it a little bit more balance when you knit with it. I don't want to kind of go off into confusing things there, so we'll just say that you spin, you know, you can have hand spun or commercially spun singles. Those are then twisted together. So you would take 2, 3, 4, however many, twist them together in the opposite direction, and that gives you the yarn. If it's 2 singles twisted together, so plied together, that will be a 2-ply. If it's 3 singles twisted, plied together, that's a 3-ply. If it's 4 singles like this one, so this one has 4 very thin singles that are plied together to make this 4-ply yarn. So that's all it means, is like whatever the number is when you're looking at the ply, it's like how many singles of the yarn are twisted together. So when you have more singles in a ply, like this 4-ply, it makes it just a little bit rounder of a yarn, and so that can be nice for like lace work and things. But that's kind of, I mean, especially if you're new to knitting, don't get hung up on the details, because you can also make beautiful color work and lace work with a 2-ply. So I would more look at the fiber content and think about the project that you're going to want to make with it, because you know, you can knit anything with anything that you want, but just know that if you don't have the nylon, it's not going to be quite as hard wearing. So if you know you want to knit socks with it, I would just recommend going for one of the sock yarns that have some nylon in it. Okay, so let's move on to DK weight. Let's move on to DK weight yarn. One of the bases that we carry is tweed, and this is not all of them in Hearthside, Cozy Hearthside collection. This is just let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7. So this is 7 of the 9, because I just grabbed what I could easily grab in my hand. But this one is DK weight. It is 85% merino, 25% Donegal nep, which that refers to these little flecks of tweed that's in the yarn. So because it's a merino, as 85%, it's very, very soft. It is superwash merino. You do see a lot of tweed that is like not merino, it's, you know, it's other Highland wool and things like that. So depending on the wool, I mean, tweed refers to it having these little flecks in it, but it could be made with any wool. But like I said, this one's merino, so very, very soft. And with it being DK weight, it is a little bit thicker than the sock yarn we were just looking at. But it knits up, and it actually looks a lot more tweedy in the skein than it knits up. So when you knit it up, it's not, I mean, you can definitely see the tweed flex. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite yarns, actually. It's really, really pretty. But it knits up with a lot less density of the tweed than the skein makes it look like it would have. I love this blue. This is Concord Frost, so this is the tonal that coordinates with Little Women. So another DK weight that we carry, another DK weight base that we carry is, it's called Chronicle, and so that is our 100% superwash merino DK weight. So this is colorway inspired by Heidi, and again, it's a little bit thicker than the sock, but thinner than a worsted weight, which we'll look at in a minute. And so there's some patterns out there to do socks with DK weight. There's a lot of sweaters. It's really nice for a sweater because it you know, the thinner the yarn, the more kind of drape you have in the fabric, the knitted fabric when you finished it. But fingering weight up being much thinner, Actually, I should hold up this one because these are the coordinating. These are the same colorway. So because fingering weight is thinner, you have more stitches per inch, so therefore more stitches in the whole, you know, item. So it takes longer to knit. Whereas the DK, because it's a little bit thicker, it's going to be less stitches per inch. It's not going to be as bulky. It's not going to, you know, it's going to have a lot more drape and movement than a worsted weight or an Aran weight sweater. But a worsted weight or an Aran weight, because it's thicker, is going to be a much warmer sweater. So these are just all considerations when you think about what it is you want to knit. Do you want it to be a thick item? Do you want it to be thinner and much more drapey and flexible? Flexible isn't quite right. Let's go with drapey. So these are all things to think about when you're choosing your yarn base. And then for the fiber content, like we talked about, how hard wearing does the item need to be? Can it be a luxury soft item, especially if it's something, you know, maybe going around your neck, like a scarf or a shawl? You might want to do, you know, merino or something that's a much softer and more luxury item. So anyway, that is Chronicle, our DK base. And so being DK, it's the same weight, so same thickness of yarn as our Folklore base in the tweed. But you're going to get two different styles, two different looks between the two yarn bases. So it just depends on what you want your finished item to be and what you want it to look like. So we also carry a third DK base, which is Ballad, and it is 85% merino and 15% silk. It is a chunky 2-ply. Let's see if I can get it to focus. I shouldn't say chunky, that's misleading because that is a weight of yarn. So let me let me retract that. It's a 2-ply, and you can definitely see the stitch or you can see the definition of the 2-plies in the skein. Now when you knit it up, it isn't a textured knit. So I've had that question before at events when people have been looking at the yarn, but it knits up, you know, you don't see the texture. It's just a lovely kind of squishy 2-ply. And then with the merino and the silk, it's obviously a lovely soft one as well. And then another, or I guess, so those are the three DK bases that we have. Chronicle, 100% merino and superwash. This one is Ballad, which is 85% merino, 15% silk. And the tweed, which is 85% merino and 15% Donegal nep. So those are the DK bases. So moving on from kind of the next thickness of yarn, the next weight of yarn up is worsted weight. And so we have a couple of worsted weight bases. So one is Fable, which is our 100% merino worsted weight base. So this is it in Chronicle, this is it in Fable. Same colorway, both 100% merino. So the difference is just that this one is DK weight, this one is worsted weight, so it's a little bit thicker. So again, when it's a little bit thicker, you're going to have less stitches per inch, so it's going to knit up a little bit faster, and overall it's going to be a little bit thicker of an item. Thinner will make it a little bit drapier, so just depends what you want. So you'll see there's not a lot of difference. They're basically exactly the same except for the thickness of the yarn between the Chronicle and the Fable base. So if you're looking at a pattern that you want to knit, if it calls for DK weight, it will be Chronicle. If it calls for worsted weight, it will be Fable if you want the superwash merino. So another worsted weight base that we have is Odyssey. Odyssey is 80% merino, 20% alpaca. So The alpaca gives it this like really soft and drapiness, but it's only 20%. So often with alpaca, things can kind of stretch a little bit, or grow a little bit after you've knitted them. So I find that tends to not happen because it's only 20%. The 80% wool helps to kind of give it the wool characteristic. And it's similar to the Ballad, that merino silk base, in that it is a 2-ply with a nice kind of, because of the weight of it, a nice plump 2-ply. So I'm currently knitting a sweater in this. I'm working on the framed pullover by Andrea Mowry using this base. And it's just a lovely one to work with. So that's Odyssey. The third worsted weight base that we carry is Saga, which is a non-superwash 100% merino. So very, very similar to Fable, but Fable is superwash 100% merino. Saga is our non-superwash 100% merino. If you're not familiar with the term superwash, what it basically means is that the wool is, it goes through a chemical process that kind of alters some of the characteristics of the wool, so it makes it a little less likely to felt. Some people do with superwash wool feel comfortable putting it in the washing machine. I personally don't. Even though technically they say with superwash you can. That's just a risk that I think for me personally is too much of a risk. Like, it's still wool at the end of the day and it could felt. So that's just a decision for everybody to make on their own. I would not throw superwash in the washing machine, but technically, I mean, some people do. Technically, that's one of the benefits, is that you can be much more rough in the way that you handle and process the wool when it's gone through the superwash treatment. So again, Fable, worsted weight superwash. Saga, worsted weight non-superwash. And the other thing to know about non-superwash is that it tends to not take the colors quite as vibrant. So for example, so this is Superwash. This one is Fable. And if I put it next to the non-superwash, you can just see there's just a little bit of a difference in the color and the way the yarn takes it, which across any base, you know, if you change the fiber content, so like the Odyssey with the alpaca, that's going to take color a little bit differently to the merino silk compared to the 100% merino compared to merino nylon. Usually there's not a big difference, but it is usually fairly noticeable, somewhat noticeable in between non-superwash and superwash yarn. So not, you know, huge, but definitely a difference. Like the way that the greens and some of those golds are taken by the yarn. And then you can really see the difference here. So this one is Storyteller Sock. So it is 80% merino, 20% nylon, but it's superwash merino. And so it really kind of takes that color vibrantly, whereas Saga, which is non-superwash, again, just a little bit more muted. So it just depends on personal preference. Some people do not like superwash. They don't want yarn that has been processed. They want it, you know, in that chemical process to make it superwash. They want it kind of more authentic wool coming off the sheep. It's, again, just different preferences that you have. The non-superwash can be like more, so when it goes through the superwash process, I feel like I've said superwash 1,000 times. I'm going to try and say it. We'll wrap it up soon because I feel like I'm saying that word a lot. But when it goes through the process, it will like smooth the scales of the wool. So it doesn't, I mean, merino is a soft yarn, and so both of these feel very soft. Superwash, non-superwash. Both feel very soft, but the Superwash smooths the scales, and so if you think of like a hair, you kind of have these natural kind of scales going down it. So it is usually recommended that you use non-Superwash in color work, because it can be just a little bit more kind of grippy. I think that's not really the case, my personal opinion, it's not really the case with merino, because it's such a soft, smooth yarn. It's definitely more of the case if you get into some more rustic yarns, especially if you're looking at like Cheviot or even Blueface Leicester, or any of the more like toothy woolly wools. That's definitely the case. The non-Superwash will just kind of grip the other yarns as you knit it, and so it's great for color work. So if I'm using merino, like I'm happy to do, I use, like the sweater I'm knitting right now, it's a Superwash merino and alpaca, and I'm knitting it for color work, and I'm happy with the results. Knit a swatch, see if you like, especially with color work, see if you like it. Because the nice thing about wool is if you knit it, if you knit up a swatch, for example, and you decide you don't like the fabric, it's not the best use of the yarn for that particular project, you can unravel it and then use it for something else. Like wool is so adaptable in that way. And just because you have yarn for a particular pattern, if it's not working well for that pattern, that doesn't mean that you can't just, that it won't work great for another pattern. Different breeds of sheep, the wool has different characteristics, and the weight of yarn, the ply of the yarn, like there's so much that goes into the construction of yarn, and then how that will affect the final project, which I know means then it's really confusing when you kind of newer and you're trying to choose yarn, and it's really easy, I think, to get like overwhelmed. And so I just think go with what you like. and if you go with just kind of having an idea of what you want the final thing to be, and think about, does it need to be hard wearing or not? Do you want it to be soft or not? How drapey do you want it to be? And then just use that to think about, what is the fiber content, meaning merino, nylon, alpaca, or what is the weight of the yarn that you're looking for? Like that, just simplify it like that. All right, so that's all the worsted weight. So next we're going to look at the Aran weight yarn that we carry. So this one is thicker again. So we started with fingering, which is the thinnest, kind of moving up to the thickest. So this is the heaviest weight, or the thickest yarn that I generally carry in the store. And so it is also 2-ply. And this one is 100% Superwash British Blueface Leicester, which also gets known as BFL. And I love this yarn. I'm knitting a sweater with this one right now. It's a lovely like jumper or sweater yarn, because it's so warm and so thick and squishy. And with it being British Blueface Leicester, it isn't as soft as merino. So this is the Chronicle base that we were just looking at. It isn't as soft as the merino, but it's much harder wearing. So we could get into some of the complexities about like staple length of the wool and things like that, but I'm going to keep it simple and just say it's a nice soft, like I would wear this next to my skin without a problem. Not as soft as the merino, but still a very soft yarn. It has nice natural shine to it. I'm a huge fan of Blueface Leicester, but one of the real benefits of this one is it does not pill in the same way that merino will, because of that longer staple length. I also carry Blueface Leicester in fiber form if you're a spinner, so it's one of my favorites to spin as well. So anyway, I'm a huge fan as I rave about it. But yeah, so anyway, this is another base. And And so we have it in the store on all of the Cozy Hearthside stories. So this one would make a lovely hat, scarf, nice chunky mittens. Like I said, I'm making a sweater with it. It's just naturally a little, you know, it's a warm one, but it's naturally less likely to pill. So just something to think about if you have items that tend to pill. So like especially in sweaters, like around the arm area where there's kind of friction and movement, the wool can pill into little balls, which, you know, isn't a huge problem. You can just kind of take one of the tools that you can get that's like a, I'm going to say razor, but it's not like a razor that you would use to shave hair. And it just like gently kind of like takes off those pills as they come up. But you're going to have a lot less of that with the Blueface Leicester wool. And then the last base that I want to share with you is called our Romance base. So this one is Suri alpaca and silk. And technically it's a lace weight, which is the thinnest of all of the yarns. So thinner than fingering weight even. But I didn't start with this one because it's a little bit more of an unusual yarn, because it has this fuzzy halo to it, and that's from the Suri alpaca. So it very much, if you're familiar with mohair, it very much acts like mohair and knits like mohair. And you have, you know, in a single, you have the fuzz. And so actually when I mentioned I'm knitting a sweater in the Aran weight, which is the mythic yarn, I'm actually holding it double. So I'm holding one strand of the mythic yarn with one strand of this yarn. And it doesn't, as it knits up, it doesn't look like two different yarns. Actually, I have it here and I can show you. So this is a different colorway. This is our Love Good colorway. But you can see, I'm not sure if you can see the fuzz and the halo in it. You can see that it doesn't look like two different yarns knitted together, even though it is. So you just kind of hold them and knit with them, and it just creates a fabric that just has that romance fuzz to it. So you can also knit with this yarn on its own. You don't have to hold it with something, but it's a nice one. You know, you can hold it like if you're knitting a hat, or and you just, you know, whatever it is that you make, and then you want it to have the fuzz of the romance base. I'm aware that the lighting is like, I got blinds to the left of me, and it's a time of day where the light's like right there, and so it keeps putting funny lights on me. Anyway, let's see, and then this is the one inspired by Little Women. So yep, technically lace weight. You can knit with it on its own, or you can hold it with other things. So they are all in the store. We also carry fiber in the store for spinning or felting. So we have some lovely braids of fiber in this new collection. So starting with this one. So this is the one inspired by Little Women, and it's called Winter in Concord. This one is dyed on 100% merino, but we also carry like Southdown, Rambouillet, Romney, Cheviot. I feel like there's more that I'm forgetting, but we carry, you know, different bases. And so if you're somebody who is new to spinning or enjoys spinning, you see a lot of merino on the market because it's, you know, it's a lovely soft wool. If you're a new spinner, I would recommend a different base. Blueface Leicester's good, Cheviot's good. Both of them are not as soft, but with a longer staple length, they're just a little bit easier to learn drafting and to kind of get the hang of, you know, drafting wool. So I do in the online shop, which is storytellerstitchery.com. In each of the listings for the different wool bases, I have like a little description And so I have more information on that in there, but I just wanted to point that out, like not all wool is equal by any measure, like, and that's not to say that some wool is better than others. Like there's just different characteristics and qualities to different breed of sheep and the wool that they produce. And so first of all, it's fun to like try different breeds, but also, you know, the wool or the yarn that you would produce from that wool will have different characteristics. Like we were talking about the BFL that pills less, things like that. So some wools are much more hard wearing, some are softer and you'd want it for next to skin. But yeah, anyway, in the online store, lots more information on that. So this colorway is inspired by Heidi. And then this one is our Little House on the Prairie inspired colorway. This one is Anne of Green Gables. So obviously they coordinate with the variegated colorways on yarn, but also offered on fiber. I also design and make wooden tools and notions. And so one of the things I designed for this collection is some stitch markers. And so you get one for each of the books. So we have Heidi, we have Anne of Green Gables. Let's see if I can make it stop moving. We have, I'm trying not to get my nails in there because I'm overdue. I'm overdue doing my nails, so sorry that they're in the camera there, but it is what it is. Little House on the Prairie, Little Women. There we go, that's a bit more clear. I'm going to show you these as well on some other, the same designs on some other things that'll help you see the design. But basically, when I make the stitch markers, I put them on one of these pins and then with a little lobster clasp so that you can hang it off your project bag or off your, notions pouch or whatever you use to carry, and you have your stitch markers. Obviously throw some extras on there if you want, but just have it, I like things that are pretty but also functional. And so that was the inspiration behind these. And so I'm offering them, this is the first time I've done this, but I'm offering them on either pins or on rings. So this one has the Storyteller Stitchery tag on, which is how they all come. I didn't put one on here because I just haven't got to it yet. But they do all come with a tag with some information on the back of it. And then you can take the tag off or leave it on, whichever you prefer. So the rings, they fit up to a size 7mm needle, and the pins fit up to an 8mm needle. And the pins are like those little, those little kind of light bulb shaped pins. So these are great for, you can use it as a progress keeper. If you want to pin it on the front of your item so you know what the front is as opposed to the back. They're great for putting onto like zippers on little project pouches. You could use it as a pin on like a decorative pin on a bag or something like that. Whereas the rings are, solid rings. So they're attached on there, and then, so that's the difference between pin and ring. So in the listing online, when you go to shop and buy them, you have the choice of which one you like. And then in those same designs, I made some sewing needle minders. So they have magnets on the back. So it will, there's a magnet attached to the back and then another magnet that comes with it that's loose. And so you would place it onto your fabric and then, the magnet on the back side of the fabric so it holds it in place. And then the magnet will hold the needle. So as you're sewing, if you want to kind of set it down, you don't have to, push it into the fabric, which can obviously make holes. This will just kind of hold it steady for you because it sticks to the magnet. So same design as the stitch markers. So we have Anne of Green Gables, and these are sketched by me and then made by me. So a little house on the prairie, Heidi in the mountains in the Alps there, with some little flowers around her, and Little Women. And so I went with the mittens and the ice skate because for the Little Women colorway, it's Winter in Concord, so it's that very kind of frosty blue, and so I wanted the stitch marker and the needle minder to coordinate with that theme. So yeah, we carry them. These are all individual, so you can choose, you know, one or however many you want. And the stitch markers though are the same designs, but they come in a set. So if you order the stitch markers, you get all 4. And then the last item in the collection is our hand-dyed embroidery threads. So for this one, all of our embroidery threads are 100% grade A mulberry silk, 26 yards per skein, and you always get 5. So I have some different collections on the shop, but I always do 5 colors to a collection, 26 yards of each. And this one, I call the colorway Cozy Hearthside Story. So this one's kind of got colors from the different, like each of the colorways. But I like to, when I'm doing the embroidery collections, I like to have very distinct and kind of different colors. So, you know, nothing that's too similar one to the next. So yeah, so we've got the green, the orange from Aran, the gold from Heidi, the coordinating tonal that I did called Hearthside Glow. This is Log Cabin from the Little House on the Prairie tonal colorway. Yeah, so that is the collection, and like I say, it went live this morning. There's also lots of photos over on Instagram, which I'm on Instagram as just Storyteller Stitchery, so feel free to go take a look there, and let me know if you have any questions. I try to keep an eye on comments, but it can be difficult. I don't always see them right away. And so between like Instagram and Facebook and, you know, YouTube, and sometimes it can be easy to miss a question. So if you have a question that you want a fast response to, the best way is usually to email me, which you can do if you go to the website, and then there's a link at the top that says contact, and that comes straight through to me as email. So that is definitely the fastest way to get a response if you have questions. But otherwise, yeah, leave a comment. Let me know if you have any questions about the different bases and things like that. But that's it for today. It's actually went way longer than I had planned for it to. I thought this was going to be quite a short one. But I really wanted to talk about the bases and, you know, the different considerations with yarn, that some of it is relevant obviously to Storyteller Stitchery and the bases that we carry. But I know it can be really confusing when you're looking online and trying to figure out, like, how does this yarn base differ from this yarn base? And if I order it, like, what is going to show up in the mail? So hopefully this was helpful. Not just for Storyteller Stitchery, but for any yarn that you're looking at. And I'm not going to, because we've gone so long, I'm not going to share any kind of project or, you know, finished objects. Well, I don't actually have any finished objects. I'm working away on some stuff, but I'll not show you progress. I'll save that for the next video just to keep this one shorter. But yeah, thank you for watching. And you know, I really appreciate you being part of the community and watching us. And if you are interested, please hit like and subscribe so you can see when the next videos are coming out. I've been a little bit sporadic with the videos, mostly down to this summer just being kind of a crazy one for us, with lots going on, you know. Part of it being summer, part of it just being business stuff, being busy, and then part of it being obviously healthcare, things going on in the family. But I do plan to get back to much more regular recording of videos. So anyway, if you want to hit like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you for hanging out with me. If you want to check out the colorways on the website, it is storytellerstitchery.com, and I'll put that in the links below. Yeah, I think that's it. Bye everyone.